So let's go into match number 3, Acer Scarlett versus Axiom Crank. Spawning in the bottom left-hand position is our red player, Acer Scarlett. And her opponent is Crank, the blue Protoss, in the top middle position. So how do you think these corner expansions come into this? I mean, we haven't seen Polar Knights a lot of times in the round of 32. And we also, like, whenever I see this map being played on any tournament, I don't see these expansions being taken at all. But I feel like this is probably like, well, actually, a Protoss's best friend in this matchup. Yeah, it definitely is a Protoss's best friend. I've talked to a couple Protosses who say that they think Protoss should almost always take the corner expansion in the back because it's safer. It's pretty easy to take. I know Todd especially advocates this. He says if you take that base, there's not too much ZerG can do to pressure it and you know, hit a timing and kill you. So he thinks that's the best position. But some Protosses don't like to take it because you obviously have to kill 2 sets of destructible rocks to take that. So it depends a little bit on what builds they do, the player styles, how much they practice this map specifically, I think. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those maps that I think gets vetoed a lot of times because it's such a weird style. Like for all other matchups, ZvT, PvT, even the third base for that is really hard. You can't easily go to the back because in Terran versus Protoss, the Terran's always pressuring you at the times you want to be expanding. You can't do it so freely. And then do you take this base or this base? So I know we're talking about TVP a lot, but I'm just saying because of that particular matchup, and I feel like Protoss does have a lot of trouble on this map, a lot of Protosses say, I'm going to veto this map and not even play it. So I feel like there's not enough experience for a lot of these players. And of course, if we want to talk about experience right now, Scarlett is definitely the one we should be talking about because she's been on hiatus for quite a long time. Yeah, this map is kind of interesting. It obviously depends a bit on experience. Scarlett, I think she has less on this map. And Crank, maybe he can pull something tricky out in this map. I'm also curious to see how it's going to go in the mid game. There's a couple different angles Protoss can attack. Depends a bit on which third base ZerG chooses. But I think there's some nice angles. I've seen sometimes in my games that Protoss can push with Colossi around to the third base, like clinging to one side of the map, going right through the right through there. And it's a nice spot for force fields. The geyser on the third base, between that and the ramp, it's pretty tight there, and you can force field it with a couple force fields. It's a nice line, and if you have Colossi or an Immortal timing, it can do a lot of damage. Very interesting. For ZerG, is this the common expansion place that you take in PvZ? Maybe. You can kind of take either. Both of them have kind of a choked up area around them. I don't actually know which one's better. I've kind of switched up between both of them in my own games. Yeah. And I haven't seen too many. ZvP is on a very high level on this map yet. Is there ever a case where you would advocate just 2 base for ZerG and then a very delayed third base, hopefully looking to take this back left base? Or does that just take up way too much time? No, that's actually a good move. If Scarlett goes for a double upgrade, Link style like she did last game, you're going to have Lings out early game anyway. And as long as you're kind of being careful about pylons with a couple Lings, you'll have the Link count that you can take down those destructible rocks and take the back base. We'll see if she does that, as a proxy pylon is going to be immediately placed at the 5-minute mark. I love this, you know. It used to be Protoss players only put down pylons if they were going to attack, but I think as the evolution of Protoss has existed, they just start placing them immediately, you know, at random supplies, just to have them there for utility, to spot, or even to apply pressure. The ZerG has to react no matter what. And I don't like Scarlett's Overlord positioning so far in this game. She has no Overlords anywhere close to Crank's bases. So if Crank throws down this Robo like he just did, well, actually that one's right next to his wall off, so she can probably scout it with some ZerGlings. But if it was farther back, it'd be almost impossible for her to sack an Overlord to scout it. And is Robo really common on this map? Well, as you said, you haven't seen a lot of high-level. I haven't seen too much high-level ZvP games, but in my games, it is fairly common just because of that third base. It's kind of common for Immortal timings, Colossi timings to come around in that angle and just hit the ZerG. And just because ZerGs haven't played this map as much, sometimes they're not expecting timing attacks like that on it. Makes a lot of sense, as there are already 3 warp gates up in what is going to be our first round of units. We haven't seen that just yet, nor do we know the place of where those units are going to be spawning. Probably Zealots, I'd guess. It'll be kind of interesting to see if he goes with the first warp-in or if he waits for 2 warp-ins. Sometimes lately 2 warp-ins is more common because 6 Zealots can do a lot more than 3 Zealots. Yeah, and it gives ZerGs a lot more time to react. but it looks like this third base is going to be incredibly delayed. You can see 7 minutes it's being placed right now. Metabolic boost is just about a third of the way done, and nothing really of too much value just yet. But the 1-1 has been started. Still, Scarlett not looking to take out any of the rocks, and we can kind of draw this back to the fact that, you know, she has been on hiatus for quite a long time.
This is going to be...
She doesn't have a lot of experience on this map.
This is going to be a tricky position for Scarlett if Crank does go for a 2-base timing instead of taking a third base, and I think he's going to. Because although she's going for the 1-1 lings, she's going for the 1-1 ling build with a third base, and that makes the 1-1 lings a bit later. And I think Crank can hit a timing before those upgrades are done. And before that's done, it's going to be tough for her to defend.
It will be, but that time warp had to be placed in a really awkward position. I feel like that's not the optimal place. And you really need that time warp for a little bit later on, especially with those Immortals popping up pretty soon here. I feel like that's a pretty crushing blow. Still, Zergling's not too effective against the Immortal all-in as long as you have good sentries. But at the same time, +1 attack isn't finished.
Even with 1-1, though, even with 1-1 finished, I think it's still kind of hard to hold off timing all-ins like this from Protoss. Because with even a few sentries, you can just force foot next to your units, and the Zerglings can't get a good surface area, and they just kind of die to Protoss units.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky. Infestation Pit is going to be thrown down here. Are there any spine crawlers? I feel like that's the one thing that Scarlett needs, and also not to saturate this base nearly as fast. You need that alarming count of Zerglings.
Yeah.
There is an engagement in the top left-hand position, but
not a good engagement for Scarlett. She lost a lot of Zerglings. She didn't clean up the Zods. And now, I don't think she's going to be able to hold her third base.
Yeah, this is such a delayed reaction to seeing all this. 4 spine crawlers are going to be thrown down. Actually, more than that, 6 spine crawlers are going to be thrown down. And Scarlett will give up her third base. That's just Immortal fodder at this point.
So I think Crank, it'll be interesting to see if he tries to overcommit or if he just pulls back. It might not even be an overcommittal because Scarlett lost a lot of Zerglings. But if Crank does decide to pull back, that's not a bad move at all against the kind of play Scarlett's going for. He already has several Immortals. Those help out a lot against the Ultra style. And early game, they're not bad either.
Oh, look at this. Big counterattack coming in here yet again, just like the game we saw with Scarlett against Puck.
He can recall, though.
He can, but is he going to? No, he's just going to keep walling off, and the Zerglings are actually doing a ton of damage here. Now, there is a...
But Scarlett doesn't have enough to hold off this attack.
Yes, she does not. There are a lot of spine crawlers here, but the Immortals
don't do anything.
Yeah, the Immortals just crush through this so incredibly fast, even with the transfuses. You can see how fast this is.
Yeah, I think Scarlett just assumed that Crank would pull back and recall to defend against that. And he didn't. He knew he had enough stuff to defend back at home, and he just went for it.
Okay, the Zergling surround actually is really good, and as you can see, the warp-ins aren't helping nearly as much. Infestors about to pop out here, and you're going to see fungal growth popping down. Oh my god, Scarlett is able to hold, but the Immortals still stay alive.
If the Immortals get out, then it's okay, because that's the most important part of this composition.
But are they going to get out? That's the big question. 1-1 Zerglings are on their tail. One Immortal is going to go down here. And, oh, you have to be careful, not the Infestors! Oh my goodness, that is a little bit scary.
Yeah, kind of fortunate for Scarlett that he didn't target fire them. 2 Immortals can one-shot an Infestor, so he could have taken out 2 or 3 Infestors right there.
And things look good yet again for Scarlett. Just in the blink of an eye, everything just changes back and forth, back and forth.
It's so good that she came back with those Lings. It was the perfect time. I thought she was in a lot of trouble. If she didn't turn around with the Zerglings, she would have lost the game right there. But she came back. It was almost too late. The spines were almost dead. But she managed to sandwich him from both sides and clean up those Protoss units.
I mean, it was a couple of things. It was the fact that she's on creep. It's the fact that a lot of the sentries were so low in energy that they couldn't actually force field things out. And even with the Zealots warping in, it doesn't help out nearly as much. Now, +1 Carapace. Interesting. +1 Carapace is going to be researched and not +1 melee. I think... Oh, there it is. Okay, +1 melee. Just got started a little bit later. Taking the third base, now looking to take the bottom left-hand position. Is this the case where Scarlett, it doesn't matter if she's on hiatus, she's just making the overall better decisions, and that's why she's such a good player? She's just good at decision-making, and that's what it comes down to?
Yeah, I think so. She's made really good decision-making so far, I think. I'm kind of a little bit disappointed in the Protoss players she's played against, especially Crank this game. You saw the build she did in the previous game, kind of scouted that it was only Zerglings and could have anticipated the same build, and just messed up that one fight by the spine crawlers. I think if he just recalled, he would have been in a much better position. He wouldn't have lost his units, and if you have that high of an Immortal count, way before she gets to Hive, you can have the army you need to deal with the Zerg late game composition.
We'll see. There is a large amount of Zerglings Infestors about to pop out here from the production tab, or at least they already have. Colossus is out in the field. Fungal Growth going to come off right there, but I don't think anything will come of it. Maybe? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. She might burn a bit of the Infestor energy because it'll regenerate by the time Crank can push anyway. But yeah, she's just pulling back, which is the correct decision. Can't fungal that Colossus to death. Festoterrans wouldn't have done anything in that position either.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's almost like she's just giving room for her creep spread and, well, her creep spread and just making it a lot scarier for Crank to push out in the field. And what that does is just buys her a little bit more time for those Ultras to pop out. And this Ultra composition, it's going to be really good against this mass Zealot.
Oh yeah, Crank has 27 Zealots on the field now. And Zealots, they don't deal with Colossi at all in Heart of the Swarm. The splash damage and the added damage from the Ultras is just too good. The Zealots will melt almost immediately once there's a couple of Ultras in the field.
And Fungal Growths obviously keep those Zealots in their place so well as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how this fight goes. But this is like, I wouldn't even say this is the timing. The timing window is closed completely.
Yeah, I mean, Crank, he has to do something. He doesn't have a third base, so he's going to have to attack.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out, I don't think. It's just too much Zerg stuff at this point.
Anything can happen, though. Time Warps are being placed down, but there's no base to really say, come at me. Which is really unfortunate, because if there was a base here with a lot of stuff, a lot of drones, all of a sudden Scarlett would have to attack.
If he had any chance to win, it would have been before. Now there's 8 Ultralisks about to pop out, and 8 Ultralisks. That's a lot of Ultralisks.
Oh, God, big Fungal Growth going down on the
maybe
Colossus
he's going to try to chain them.
And yes, he is going to try to chain them. But a little bit of room has been given. Nice feedback on one of the Queens. That's exactly what you have to do against the Ultralisk popping out here pretty soon. But things are not going to look good as the Ultras start to gear up, killing every single Zealot so incredibly fast. The Fungals keeping the Zealots and everything else in their place. GG calls. And Scarlett will take the first map pretty